Hello and welcome. Today we're going to do some experimenting in our program Gimp. We're going to do this by creating an abstract painting. So we're going to experiment with some different painting tools and drawing tools in Gimp. The idea of an abstract piece of artwork is it's a style of art which objects are simplified or exaggerated. So we are not trying to draw something specific today. We are going to just play with and experiment with the tools. So we're going to start by opening up Gimp. And once you have the program open, what I'd like you to do is go File, New, and up here, they have a lot of really great templates. So we're just going to start off with a US letter size piece of paper or canvas. That's going to make it 8.5 inches by 11 inches, but we do want this to be horizontal, more like our current landscape. So we're going to switch the orientation so that the width is 11 and the height is 8.5. Everything else here is perfectly fine, so we're going to hit OK. All right, now this does make this look a little big on my screen, so I am going to come down here and take this to about 25% so I can see the edges of my composition. We're going to start off very simply with the normal brush tool. So that is right over here in my tool palette. You can also go to Tools and down to Paint Tools and find the paintbrush. Okay. Once that opens up, it may be on your left side or your right side. I have my tool options down here in the bottom left. So again, it could be up here on the right side. Let's see here if I plop it in, will it go into my palette? Okay, so some could be there, could be not. I like to have it, so I'm just going to drag that over and stick it on this side. I like to have it there so I can make my adjustments so I can still see my layers on the right side. That's my preference though. So either way, I have a paintbrush tool selected and I can come down here to my paintbrush tool options and I can select different brushes here. We're going to stick with this large round brush for right now. It is, if you're labeling it, it is this one here. I'm going to make sure that my opacity is 100% because that's what I expect, but know that you can play with this. I'm going to also adjust the size. Right now it's a fairly small, so I'm going to bring it to about that, to 293. Spacing, I'm going to leave right where it is for right now. I'll show you what that means. Hardness and force, I'm going to keep those up at 100 for right now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and click on my foreground color here. It brings up the color picker here. I'm going to use this and I'm going to think about a color for what my water would be. So we're thinking water and sky mostly right now. So here is going to be maybe my light watercolor. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to come over here to the canvas and I'm going to paint. Now, if this is what you're expecting, this solid, that is from, again, the hardness is 100, the force is 100. If I increase my spacing, it puts more space in between the marks from the tool. So I like to keep this more like a marker or a paintbrush where it's going to be a fluid motion versus that spacing. So I keep the spacing low. So I'm going to paint kind of just this section down here with some of my watercolor. Okay. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to change my color a little bit and grab something that's more of my sky color. And right now, if I was over in my layers palette, I am painting on the background. So this is just fun. We're just going to add some color. Okay, so I've got some water, some sky color in there, and that's where I'm going to start. Now, you can, again, play with the size of your brush, play with any of these things, play with the opacity. For example, if I wanted to come in and add a darker color to my sky, I could take the opacity down a little bit and edit undo or control Z is going to be your best friend in here. And I can kind of put in some lighter values and see how it layers as I build that up. And you can create some shading by playing with the opacity. The other thing that you can do, I'm going to take that back up, is I'm going to change the hardness of my paintbrush. It's going to have a really soft edge. So I'm going to paint up here and you can see how it looks a little fuzzy at that point. I can come in and layer some white, and maybe I'll take the opacity down of the white and maybe my brush size down just a little bit, and I can put some white streaks or lighter streaks in there too. And I can do this down in the water as well. Okay, so right now I'm just creating an abstract composition. Same thing, I can take the hardness way down and the opacity. I'm gonna get rid of those last couple marks and put in some really light area here. All right, now what am I trying to do? So you might pull up a picture of a tropical landscape and look at how the water in real life would look. So we would have maybe some more white towards our sand, some lighter, and as it gets out to the horizon line, it gets darker. The sky kind of does the same thing. At the water line, it's a little bit lighter, and as it gets higher, the blue starts to become more vivid and dark. Okay, so something to consider as we are painting. So I've got some dark at the top, some lighter. My water needs to get a little darker. So if I go into my color picker, I can always use my little eyedropper and pick up the color I had. I'm going to make it a little darker. And I'm going to come in, maybe just not quite as opaque. And I'm going to add some dark there. All right, so you're saying this looks terrible. Okay, so that's one tool that you can experiment with. And I've used one brush for this entire thing, but feel free to go in and choose some other brushes and see if they add some like textural marks. That might be cool for our palm tree base, is to add some texture to that. And play around with some of these other tools that you might find. This is the day to experiment, and don't be afraid to try different colors with your tools and play with the different settings. Okay, because again, we're just creating an abstract painting. The more playing, the more things you use today, the better. Now I will show you one other area. So there's all these tools in here. Here's a pepper, and so literally you're painting peppers. So probably not going to work real well for this project, but know that it's one of the brush types that's in there. I'm not sure what this one is. This is like a sun. Let's make it bigger so we can see, ooh, like these little spots. Again, probably not something you're going to use, but it is there for you. If we go into the paintbrush tool, there's also my paintbrush. Okay, and this is going to give you a bunch of different paint brushes that maybe have more of a painterly quality. So maybe you want something that looks more like, well, drawing quality, charcoal. Maybe this was a brush here called clouds. So maybe I should come in with some lighter and start putting in some of these dots and things. Again, that might be something we do at the end when you're all done, but you can still pick these brushes and mess with some of the settings there and try them out. You'll see things in here like acrylic paintbrushes. You'll see different types of drawing pencils, markers, airbrushes in here. You will see palette knife. I like a palette knife when I'm actually painting. Wonder what that looks like. It has this wide kind of almost like a calligraphy edge to it. So in this setting. So something to play around with and think about. Okay, so you can choose any of these brushes and try to see what they do and how they react on your painting as well. Okay, but there's tons to choose from. Here's like a spray can. Here's like a sponge. Let's try this sponge and see what happens. Sponge. I'm still using a specific color with this, but it seems to like kind of like the sponge. Radius would be your size. So if you need it to be, and I might use the sponge more Okay, now these brushes you may find are a little slow and they take a little bit to respond. So it's just a lot for our computers to handle, but you can try those out. The last and final tool that we're going to talk about today, beyond the My Brush tool, is you can see it's still trying to respond over here on my painting, is the smudge tool. Okay, so, well, it's the smudge sets. So over here, looks kind of like this for right now because it's on the dodge and burn, but you can get into the smudge tool. You can again adjust the size of your smudge, and you can kind of come in and work your painting back and forth, kind of blending some of those areas out that you might have. Now, I would go back to my round brush because it does work on the brush that you have currently. It's this, instead of adding color, you're really smoothing or moving colors around. So you can kind of see how, on a larger scale, how that smudge starts to work. And you can kind of blend things a little bit. You can also use this if you click on the smudge tool, if you go to dodge and burn, great for highlights because it's going to come in and kind of move some of that away, almost like an eraser, but it does a nicer job, a smoother job of that. You don't get hard edges. So something like that. You can also think about this blur tool here. I don't see a whole lot in what I'm doing with that. I've tried it a couple of different times, but it could be that it's already smudged and blurred too much for that. I'm not sure. Okay, but I do like the smudge tool and the dodge and burn a little bit there too. So again, you can find those by going to tools and going to paint tools and going to smudge, blur, dodge. They're all there. There's my paintbrush as well. Think about airbrush, think about ink. You can try any of these things in this paint tool section that you would like, but the idea is you're creating an abstract piece of artwork that's something that you might use on your actual project. So you're trying to play with this so that when you get to painting on your project, you can kind of have an idea of what you want to do. All right, so after you are happy with your, I'm going to do a little smudge there, I didn't like that line. After you're happy with kind of what your composition looks like, what you're going to do at that point, and don't be afraid to go back and forth. So right now I'm in the smudge tool, but maybe I want to go back to this, my regular brush, paintbrush here, and go back in with some of these textural marks. And not that I want to put dots anywhere like this, but go into there. And so I'm going back and forth. And now I'm going to adjust and add some smudge that out. Okay, so again, you have the option. And be aware if you just click or if you click and move, different things happen, right? So I don't like the way I did that. Okay, kind of like that darker. I want to move it around a little bit. So figure out how the brush responds to you. All right, now, if you're happy with that, you can go ahead and save this. We're going to file save as, and we're going to leave this in our documents, digital art class, Gimp tropical landscape, and I'm just going to put this abstract. Whoops, I don't want to type there. I want to type here. Abstract painting. And I should have put this with Goswick, comma, Jenny, space hyphen, space, Gimp, space, abstract painting. So we kind of have that file name that we're supposed to have in there. And then we're going to go ahead and hit save. Why is it showing that? I'm going to just real quick try this just one more time. File save as, and put go to digital art class, tropical landscape, put my file in there. I'm not sure why that's coming up, and I'm going to hit save. Makes me a little nervous. Do I want to replace it? No, I don't want to replace it because I don't want it to be tropical landscape. I want it to be abstract painting. And hit save. And that should work. Hopefully it didn't save over my good painting, but we'll see. So after I have that saved, we are going to take a screenshot of this. So I'm going to quickly do that. When you take your screenshot, you want to make sure you get your drawing, your file name at the top, and a little bit of that layers palette. And then I'm going to go ahead and open this screenshot up, and I'm going to save it in my folder for screenshots for the project. And this screenshot is 13.06 screenshot, and we'll hit save. All right, so if you have any concerns or questions about this step of the project, please let me know. But really, this should be a fun step. You're experimenting, trying things out, and I should see a lot of cool abstract pieces of artwork here. Again, reach out if you need anything. Otherwise, enjoy the process.